Bonjour, people! Moving on to number 4, and it is... A World Without Wordgirl Part 1. So, let's begin, true laddies. In the beginning of the episode, the Monster family are planning a birthday party for Becky, and they say this is the greatest party ever! So, Becky, excited about this, decides to go to her first surprise, the bouncy house. Until she hears superhearing from the sandwich shop across town. She then flies off, and she finds out it's Chuck. And Chuck in the sandwich shop wants him to become the sandwich king. Besides Chuck, the evil sandwich making guy. And Wordgirl shows up and wraps up Chuck, the evil sandwich making guy, and heads back to her birthday party. Only to find out many of the people in the bouncy house was not there. And moved on to her second surprise. Horse riding. This somehow makes Becky so excited about this part. Then she gets interrupted again. What the fuck are you trying to do, Wordgirl? Trying to miss out on your own crime battling days? So Becky becomes Wordgirl again, and this time it's the butcher untying Chuck, the old sandwich making guy. Or is it Dr. Two Brains? I guess it's either Dr. Two Brains or the butcher. Anyway, she ties up either one as one of those two villains, and Wordgirl zooms back to her birthday party and finds out all the ponies are sleeping, and this somehow really frustrates Becky at this point. In the next one, the Ferris wheel in the backyard was running, and the Ferris wheel was riding around. Oh crap! And somehow the Ferris wheel was in the backyard of her house, and somehow Becky was so excited about her next surprise, and guess what happens next? Yes, she gets interrupted one final time. Becky, truly frustrated about this freaking part, decides to go back to the Rubens, goes back to the sandwich shop and find out it was Dr. Two Brains, untying them both. This time, Wordgirl really is freaking frustrated at this part, beats them up, sends them straight to jail, and then the energy monster walks past her. And she says to her really irritable voice, "Energy monster, you picked the wrong day to mess with me. The wrong day." And so, Wordgirl then goes over to the telephone, goes over to the electrical plant, plugs the energy monster into the electrical lines, and somehow, when the cake was done at the home, it somehow began glowing. And the cake could have been enchanted. And this somehow gives Becky an opportunity to wish a free world without Wordgirl. With the wish made, many things changed around the city. With Fair City gone, Chunktopia was in its place. And Chuck, the old sandwich making guy, was the king of the city. Somehow Becky's life was changed to this moment. And Wordgirl gone, well, let's just say Becky's in another reality. Moving on, that's the end of part 1, and moving on to part 2. On part 2 of A World Without Wordgirl, the narrator recaps what happened on part 1. Becky tells her mom what she put on her cake. All the ingredients except for that electricity monster that was put on the cake that made the glowing effect. Becky looks back at the box and the box says, "Warning, if cake electrified, cake may be enchanted." Finding about this, Becky finds out this is a joke. But it's not a joke, it was a real thing. So Becky decides to figure out what's going on, so she strolls out to the city, and finds out that the city has been changed. Holy crap. And the whole city went to hell that day. So, Becky, on the other hand, decides to investigate what's going on around the city, while the sandwich shops are all sandwichized, and somehow everything changed. And a big statue of Chuck was in the center of the city, and somehow announces everything says And somehow announces Chuck told me to say everything about sandwiches in sandwich words. And somehow the citizens do, but Becky somehow stands up to correct them, but fails. The police arrive and show up, and take them to Chuck's throne in the mayor's office. From there, she confronts the evil sandwich-making king, and talks to her that she's new in town. Somehow Chuck, not finding out about this, tells Becky that everything needs to be all sandwichized. First rule, and Chuck says to her, first rule, everything must start talking in sandwiches. We say in sandwich words, we use sandwich words. Second, all the shops and everywhere in the world must be sandwichized. Third, nobody should eat nothing but sandwiches. Except on your birthday, we're allowed to eat cake. Becky not amused of this, so Chuck tells her about what happened to Wordgirl. You see, I'm an ordinary citizen, but there was no superhero to stop me, and I got better and better. Wordgirl, not impressed with this, escapes from City Hall and finds a nearby sandwich shop where her dad is. There, Dr. Tuber serves him a sandwich. And Dr. Tuber is an alternative reality except for that usual messed up hair. Now this is his alternative appearance in Chucktopia. And somehow Becky talks to her dad about what happened in her birthday party when she made the wish. And she shouldn't have made the wish in the first place. And somehow one last piece of cake was left standing. The cake that had the enchantment glow on it. But Bob didn't eat that last piece there. So, the three run out the sandwich shop. Drives back to their house while Chuck, the Whammer, and Granny May were on their trail. And the butcher as well. Tim, Becky, and Bob escape from them, but the butcher traps them with pastrami. Bob hops out of the car, eats pastrami, with no hope left. Dr. Tuberance rises up and shoots him with the cheese ray, saving the trio. Somehow Becky, on the other hand, Tim, Becky, Bob, with the pastrami ate off the road, drive back to the house, make her wish on the cake, wishing everything was back to normal when Wordgirl was back. With the wish made, everything was back to normal. And, as narrator recaps the episode, and so we come to an end of an unusual story of a world without Wordgirl, and it was an unusual enchanted birthday cake. That was a little bit different narration, Mr. Narrator. So, that's about it. Okay, there's some things I liked about this episode. First, this is more of a what-if story. What would happen if Wordgirl did not exist around Fair City when she left? That means the villains will take over the city by their own each individuality. Second, it is based on an old movie and It's a Wonderful Life where the character life was different. Third, it had references to old TV shows and video games I used to watch and play. First, there was G.I. Joe. In the two-part episode, Worlds Without End. If I'm correct. In that two-part episode, the Joes went to an alternative reality where the Cobra took over the world. And somehow the Joes went back to their own world and everything was back to normal. And some certain video games like Wolfenstein New Order that I played on my Xbox One, the Nazis took over the entire world, and BJ and the Krasow must find a way to get them back. Must find a way to rewrite history and get rid of all the Nazis. Overall, this two-part episode was a great two-part episode at all times. This is one of my most favorite episode of all time, as you may know. So, with all that said, Jerry Paulson saying, I'll be back on number 3.